Daniel Hayes was working on a broken water pump when he heard the noise outside. It was loud and sharp, like metal scraping against concrete. He put down his tools and wiped the grease from his hands. The sound came again, followed by voices, many voices. He walked out of his workshop into the bright afternoon sun. A crowd had gathered near the landing platform. Daniel could see the shape of a ship, smaller than the usual trading vessels. Smoke rose from one of its engines. Something had gone wrong. Daniel pushed through the crowd. People were talking fast, their voices mixing together. He caught words like accident and injured and alien. When he reached the front, he stopped. A small creature sat on the ground. It had 6 limbs and a hard shell that shined purple and black in the sunlight. 2 thin antennas moved on top of its head. The creature was one of the species that traded with the human colonies, but this one was small, a child. The child's lower right limb was crushed. Daniel could see where the shell had cracked and fluid leaked out. The limb bent at an angle that made him feel sick. The child made clicking sounds, high and fast. It was crying. 3 adults stood nearby. They spoke to each other in their own language, a series of clicks and chirps. One of them wore a translation device on its chest. Daniel stepped closer. "What happened?" he asked. The translator turned to face him. Its compound eyes reflected Daniel's face 100 times over. "Cargo accident," the device said in flat mechanical words. "Crate fell. The young one was in the way. We will leave it at your medical center." Daniel looked at the child again. It had wrapped its other limbs around itself, trying to make itself small. "Leave it," Daniel said. "You mean drop off your kid at the hospital." "It is damaged," they said. "No longer useful to the clan. Your medical facility can process the remains when it expires." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Expires? It's a child, not a machine." "It is broken," another said through the same translator. "Broken things are removed from the hive. This is our way." One of the adults moved closer to the child. She was smaller than the others and carried markings on her shell that looked like family symbols. The child reached up with one limb, clicking softly. The adult touched the child's antenna with her own, a brief moment of contact. Then she pulled away. "That's the mother," someone in the crowd whispered. Daniel watched the mother step back. Her antennas drooped low. She said something in her own language, too quick for the translator to catch. Then she turned away. "Wait," Daniel said. He knelt down next to the child. Up close, he could see the child was terrified. Its body shook. The broken limb leaked more fluid onto the concrete. "I can help." The translator made a sound like scraping metal. "You cannot repair genetic weakness. The limb is lost. The young one is marked as imperfect." "I can build a new limb," Daniel said. "A prosthetic, something mechanical that works like the real thing." The crowd went quiet. They looked at each other. Their antennas moved in patterns Daniel couldn't read. "Why would you do this?" the translator asked. "What value does a broken child hold for you?" Daniel thought about his brother. He thought about the mining accident 5 years ago. He thought about holding his brother's hand while the life left his eyes, unable to do anything to save him. He pushed the memory away. "Because no kid should be thrown away like garbage," Daniel said. The mother made a sound, a soft chirp. She moved toward Daniel, then stopped. The other blocked her path. "You would waste resources on this?" one of them asked. "It's not a waste," Daniel said. He looked at the child. "Hey, kid, I'm going to help you, okay?" The child's clicking slowed. Its antennas turned toward Daniel. Colony Administrator Ellen Park pushed through the crowd. She was a short woman with gray hair and a permanent frown. She grabbed Daniel's arm. "Don't get involved in this," she said quietly. "These are cultural matters. We don't interfere." "A child is hurt," Daniel said. "A child with customs," Ellen said. "If you interfere, it could cause diplomatic problems." Daniel pulled his arm free. He looked at Ellen, then at the crowd, then back at the small, broken creature on the ground. "I'm not going to let a kid die because of diplomatic problems," he said. He stood and faced the adult. "I'm taking the child to my workshop. I'm going to build a prosthetic limb. If you want to stop me, you'll have to do it by force." They were silent. Their antennas twitched. Finally, the one with the translator spoke. "If you wish to waste your time on the damaged, that is your choice. We depart in 3 hours. If the young one survives, it will not return with us." The mother made another sound. She moved toward her child, but the others held her back. She said something sharp and fast. The translator didn't pick it up. Daniel bent down and carefully slid his arms under the child. It was lighter than he expected, maybe 30 pounds. The child went rigid with fear, its good limbs pressed against Daniel's chest. The broken limb hung loose, dripping. "It's okay," Daniel said softly. "I've got you." He carried the child toward his workshop. The crowd parted. Some people looked angry, others looked sad. Lisa Grant, who ran the hydroponics bay, followed him. "I'll help," she said. "You don't have to," Daniel said. "I know," Lisa said, "but I'm going to." Daniel's workshop was small and cluttered. Workbenches lined the walls, covered with tools and parts. Half-finished projects sat in corners. He cleared a space on the largest table and set the child down carefully. The child's clicking had gotten quieter. Its eyes, hundreds of tiny lenses working together, watched Daniel's every move. He pulled over a medical scanner, one he used for fitting prosthetics to human colonists. "I need to look at your limb," Daniel said. "It might hurt, I'm sorry." The child didn't move. Daniel activated the scanner and held it over the broken limb. The display showed him what he already knew. The limb was destroyed beyond repair. Bone, or whatever the equivalent was, had shattered. The hydraulic systems that helped them move were ruptured. It would have to come off. Lisa brought water and a bowl of nutrient paste from the ship. The child didn't touch either. "What's its name?" Lisa asked. Daniel realized he didn't know. He looked at the translator device he'd borrowed from the ship. He pressed the button. "What's your name?" he asked the child. The child made a soft clicking sound. The translator processed it. "Oh, it said." Daniel repeated, "That's a good name." He pulled up files on his computer, everything he had about anatomy. There wasn't much. They didn't share their biological information freely. He would have to figure this out as he went. The child watched him work. Daniel set up the 3D scanner and moved it over his remaining limbs. He needed measurements. He needed to understand how they worked. He needed to build something that would let this child walk again. Outside, the sun was setting. The ship's engine started up. Through the window, Daniel saw it lift off and disappear into the orange sky. The mother was on that ship. She had left her child behind. Saw it too. The child's clicking became faster, more desperate. Daniel stopped working and moved closer. "I know," he said. "I know it hurts." He showed the scars on his own arms, burns from the mining accident. He pointed to a photo on his desk, him and his brother as kids. "I lost someone too," Daniel said, "but you're going to be okay, I promise." Daniel worked through the night. His eyes burned from staring at the computer screen, but he couldn't stop. The 3D models of limbs rotated on the display, showing him angles and measurements he'd never dealt with before. Limbs were nothing like human arms or legs. They worked on hydraulic pressure, like tiny pumps moving fluid through channels in the exoskeleton. The joints had 3 points of rotation instead of 2. The grip strength came from microscopic hooks on the limb tips, not fingers or muscles. Every human prosthetic design he knew was useless here. Daniel rubbed his eyes and looked over at. The child was still asleep, curled up under the thermal blanket. The broken limb had stopped leaking, but the damage was clear. He would need to amputate what remained and create a clean interface point for the prosthetic. The workshop door opened. Lisa came in carrying a food container and a thermos. "You need to eat," she said. "I need to work," Daniel said. "You need to eat while you work," Lisa said. She set the food down on the only clear spot on his desk. "I brought some food too. I did some research on nutrition. They need a lot of mineral content." Daniel looked at her. "You researched alien nutrition." "Someone has to keep you both alive," Lisa said. She pulled up a chair. "Show me what you've got." Daniel walked her through the design problems. Lisa wasn't an engineer, but she understood systems. Growing plants in space required understanding complex biological processes. She asked questions that made Daniel think differently about the problems. "What if you don't try to copy their natural limb?" Lisa said. "What if you make something better?" "Better how?" Daniel asked. "Their limbs are biological," Lisa said. "They break, they wear out, they have limits, but a mechanical limb doesn't have to have those same limits. You could add features." Daniel thought about it. She was right. He didn't need to perfectly recreate what had lost. He needed to build something that would work, maybe work even better than the original. He started sketching new designs, stronger joints, better grip control, the ability to rotate in ways the biological limb couldn't. If he was going to do this, he might as well do it right. Woke up a few hours after dawn. The child's clicking was soft and confused. Daniel moved slowly, not wanting to scare. "Hey there," he said. "How are you feeling?" Santenas turned toward him. The translator device on the table picked up the child's response. "Pained," it said. "Where is Mother?" "She's gone," Daniel said gently. "But I'm here and I'm going to help you." Looked at the broken limb. The child made a sad, chirping sound that the translator couldn't process. But Daniel understood it anyway. He'd made sounds like that himself after his brother died. Lisa brought over the bowl of nutrient paste she'd prepared, sniffed at it with the tiny sensors on the antennas. After a moment, the child began to eat, slowly at first, then faster. "Good," Lisa said. "You need your strength." As ate, Daniel explained what he was going to do. He used simple words and showed diagrams. He needed to understand and to trust him. This wouldn't work if the child was too scared to cooperate. Listened, antennas twitching. When Daniel finished, the child was quiet for a long time, then spoke, and the translator converted the clicks to words. "Why help me? I am broken. I am no use to anyone." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "You're not broken, you're hurt. There's a difference, and you're a kid. Kids deserve help, all kids." "The Hive does not think this way," said. "I'm not the Hive," Daniel said. "I'm just me, and I think you matter." Santenas drooped. The child looked so small and lost. Daniel wanted to offer comfort, but he didn't know how. He settled for gently touching one of his good limbs with his hand. "We're going to get through this," he said, "together." Over the next day, other colonists began to stop by. Peter arrived first. He was a mechanic who worked on the colony's farming equipment. He took one look at Daniel's parts inventory and shook his head. "You don't have half of what you need," Peter said, "but I do." He left and came back an hour later with a box full of servos, actuators, and pressure sensors. Some of them looked expensive. "Peter, I can't afford these," Daniel said. "Good thing I'm not selling them," Peter said. "I'm donating them for the kid." More people came. A programmer named Carlos offered to write the control software. A materials scientist named brought samples of lightweight alloys. Even Ellen Park, who had told Daniel not to get involved, quietly dropped off a medical kit designed for xenobiology. The workshop became crowded with people wanting to help. They brought food, supplies, expertise, and support. Daniel realized he wasn't doing this alone anymore. The whole colony had around one small alien child. Watched all of this with wide, compound eyes. The child didn't understand why these humans cared. In culture, the broken were discarded. But here, people were giving their time and resources to help. "Your species is strange," said to Daniel. "Yeah," Daniel said, "we get that a lot." The prosthetic began to take shape. Daniel fabricated the main structure from lightweight titanium alloy. The joints used microhydraulic systems similar to what biology used, but more durable. The interface point required the most delicate work. It had to connect directly to his nervous system. Daniel worked with to create a neural mesh, tiny filaments that would read the electrical signals from his body and translate them into movement commands. It was cutting-edge technology, the kind usually reserved for expensive medical facilities. "This is some of the best work I've ever seen," said as she examined the interface. "You're building something remarkable here." "I'm just trying to help a kid walk," Daniel said. "You're doing more than that," said. "You're showing that species doesn't matter when someone needs help." 2 days after its arrival, the prosthetic was ready. It looked different from its other limbs. Where they were purple and black, the prosthetic was silver and gray, but Daniel had shaped it to match the proportions of a limb as closely as possible. Sat on the work table, looking at the mechanical limb. The child's antennas moved nervously. "It will hurt when we attach it," Daniel said honestly. "Your nerves need to connect to the neural mesh, but after that it should feel natural or close to natural." "I understand," said. Daniel had given a mild sedative. Something had assured him was safe for biology. It would dull the pain but keep the child conscious enough to help with the calibration. Lisa held other limbs gently, offering comfort. Daniel positioned the prosthetic over the clean amputation site he'd prepared. The interface clicked into place. He activated the neural mesh. His whole body went rigid. The child's clicking became sharp and fast, a cry of pain. Daniel's hands shook, but he kept working. He had to get the calibration right. If the signals didn't match properly, the limb would be useless. "I know it hurts," Daniel said. "Just a little longer, you're doing great." He adjusted the signal patterns, watching the readings on his scanner. The neural mesh was learning his nervous system, adapting to the way the child's body communicated. It took 15 minutes that felt like hours, shook and clicked the whole time. Lisa spoke softly in her own language, words of comfort that needed no translation. Finally, the reading stabilized. Daniel stepped back. "Try to move it," he said. His antennas twitched. Nothing happened. Then slowly the prosthetic limb moved. It lifted off the table, rotated and extended, made a sound of surprise. The limb moved again, this time with more confidence. "It works," Lisa said, her voice full of wonder. Climbed down from the table carefully. 5 limbs touched the floor, then the 6th, the prosthetic. The child wobbled, trying to find balance with the new limb. Daniel reached out to steady, but the child waved him off with an antenna. Took one step, then another. The prosthetic moved in sync with the biological limbs, adjusting automatically to maintain balance. By the 10th step was walking almost normally. The child stopped and looked down at the silver limb, then looked up at Daniel. The translator picked up the soft clicking. "I can walk," it said. "You can walk," Daniel agreed. His antennas began moving in a pattern Daniel had never seen before. The child made sounds that were almost musical. Lisa looked at the translation software she'd been studying. "I think that's laughter," she said. Walked around the workshop, testing the new limb. The child climbed onto a chair, then down again, picked up a tool with the prosthetic's grip function. Spun in a circle, all 6 limbs working together. Other colonists who'd been waiting outside came in to see. They clapped and cheered, didn't understand the human custom, but understood the emotion behind it. The child's antennas perked up and the musical clicking continued. Peter knelt down to level. "That's some fine engineering right there, kid. You're wearing a piece of art." Carlos showed how the prosthetic's control interface could be adjusted, how to make the grip stronger or gentler, how to lock the joints if needed. Absorbed it all, the child's intelligence clear in how quickly the lessons were learned. Daniel sat down on his work stool, exhausted. He'd been awake for nearly 60 hours straight. His whole body ached, but watching walk around his workshop, seeing the joy in every movement made it worth it. Lisa sat down next to him and handed him a cup of coffee. "You did good," she said. Queen stood in the center of her throne chamber, reading the report for the 3rd time. Around her, the walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, the living architecture of the hive world responding to her mood. The patterns were disturbed, chaotic. She was disturbed. The report came from a minor trading vessel, the kind of routine document she would normally never see. But her intelligence officers had flagged it. They thought it was important. They were right. A human had repaired a broken child. Not healed, the report was clear about that. The limb had been destroyed, removed. But the human had built a replacement. A mechanical limb that functioned as well as, perhaps better than, the original biological one. That wasn't what disturbed. They had their own prosthetic technology. What disturbed her was the reason given in the report. The human had done it because the child was a child, because children deserved help. No payment had been requested, no political advantage sought. The human had simply seen a young one in pain and refused to let it suffer. Was 300 years old. She had ruled the 7th Hive clan for 2 centuries. In all that time, she had never encountered logic like this. It made no sense. Resources spent on the broken were resources wasted. The strong survived. The weak were removed. This was the foundation of civilization. But if this philosophy was so right, why did the report bother her so much? Her chief advisor, a male named, approached with the careful movements of someone addressing an agitated queen. "Your Majesty, the Council awaits your decision on the mining expansion." Waved an antenna dismissively. "Later, I am reviewing intelligence reports." His antennas perked up in surprise. Queens did not personally review intelligence reports, especially not from minor trading routes. He moved closer, trying to see what had captured her attention. "A human colony matter," said. "Tell me, if one of our young ones is damaged, what happens to them?" "They are removed from the hive," said automatically. Imperfection weakens the clan. This has been our way for thousands of years. And if someone tried to save them, asked, tried to repair them, that would be wasteful, said. Resources are better spent on the strong. Turned to face him fully. Her size, nearly twice that of a normal, made step back instinctively. Then explained to me why a species considered weak, by our standards, would waste resources on our broken child. She pulled up the report on the hive's central display. Images showed the human Daniel working on the prosthetic. Videos showed the child walking with the mechanical limb. The data included interviews with the human colonists who had helped. Watched in silence. When the report finished, his antennas moved in confused patterns. I do not understand their reasoning, he said. Neither do I, said, and that is what concerns me. She thought back to recent conflicts with other species. The empire was strong, but not as dominant as it had once been. Other civilizations had technologies and strategies that baffled logic, and many of those civilizations had one thing in common. They valued the weak. They protected their damaged. They spent resources on things that gave no obvious return, and somehow that made them stronger. Had never understood it. She dismissed it as inefficiency, weakness disguised as virtue. But watching this human spend days saving one broken child, seeing an entire colony rally around that effort, she wondered if she'd been wrong. I want to understand this, she said. Understand what, Your Majesty? Asked. Why they do this, what they gain from it, how this illogical behavior makes them strong enough to challenge us. Santenna's flattened in concern. Your Majesty, surely you do not believe human emotional weakness is a strength. Moved to the chamber's observation window. Outside, the hive world stretched to the horizon, billions of working in perfect coordination. A society built on ruthless efficiency and the elimination of weakness. A society that had not changed in. A society that might be missing something fundamental. Prepare my personal ship, said. Made a sound like scraping chitin. Your Majesty. I am going to visit this colony. I will speak with this human who repairs the broken. Your Majesty, queens do not visit minor colonies. This is beneath your station. Send an emissary, a diplomatic team. No, said, I will go myself. I must see this with my own eyes. The council will object, said carefully. The council serves me, not the other way around, said. Her voice carried the resonance of absolute authority. Prepare the ship. We leave within the day. Knew better than to argue further. He bowed low and retreated to carry out her orders. As he left, returned her attention to the report. There was something else, something she hadn't mentioned too, a detail buried in the interview with the human. Daniel had spoken of his own loss, a brother who died. The human had cried while building the prosthetic, speaking to the memory of someone he couldn't save. He'd saved not because it made sense, but because he'd failed to save someone else. Understood loss. 300 years ago, when she was a new queen, she'd had a daughter. The daughter had been born with a genetic flaw, a weakness in her exoskeleton. By law, by tradition, by the rules that held society together, the daughter had to be removed from the hive. Had given the order herself. She'd watched as her only offspring was taken away to die. It was the right decision. The only decision. Weakness could not be allowed to spread. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between ruling and conquest, wondered what her daughter would have become. She wondered if that ancient decision had been right or simply easy. Now here was a human who'd faced a similar choice and had chosen differently. Against logic, against cultural pressure, against the advice of his own leaders, he'd chosen to save a life. Needed to understand why, and more than that, she needed to understand the look she'd seen in his eyes in the video. The look of a child who'd been certain of death and found life instead. The look of hope. When had children stopped looking hopeful? The royal flagship, Eternal Perfection, was the largest ship in the 7th Hive Clan's fleet. It required minimal preparation time because kept it ready at all times. Within hours, it was lifting off from the throne world, accompanied by 6 heavy cruisers of the Royal Guard. The journey would take 2 days, spent them reviewing everything the Empire had on human psychology, human culture, and human colonies. She spoke with and cultural analysts. None of them could explain the human behavior in terms that made sense to thinking. They are simply inefficient, one analyst concluded. They waste resources on emotional responses that provide no practical benefit. And yet they compete with us economically and militarily, pointed out. How can such wasteful beings be so effective? The analyst had no answer. On the second day of travel, the fleet entered the system containing New Horizon Colony. The human settlement was small, maybe 10,000 inhabitants. It existed primarily as a farming and trading outpost. Nothing important, nothing worth a queen's personal attention. Except for one engineer who valued broken children. The colony's sensors detected the fleet immediately, watched their communication channels light up with panic. They thought it was an invasion. They scrambled their minimal defense systems. They sent urgent messages to nearby human military installations. Sent a single transmission. We come in peace. Queen of the 7th Hive Clan requests permission to land. I wish to speak with the engineer Daniel Hayes. The channel went silent for a full minute. Then a woman's voice responded, tense and careful. This is Governor Ellen Park of New Horizon Colony. Your Majesty, may I ask the purpose of your visit? I wish to understand why your engineer repaired our broken child, said. I will speak with him personally. Another long silence. Could imagine the chaos this was causing. Queens did not make personal visits to minor colonies. This violated every protocol, every expectation. The humans had no idea how to respond. We will prepare a landing site for your ship, Your Majesty, Ellen finally said. When should we expect your arrival? 1 hour, said. She ended the transmission and turned to. Alert the Royal Guard. We land regardless of their preparations. I will not be delayed by human bureaucracy. As the eternal perfection descended toward the colony, felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Nervousness. She was about to meet a human who had challenged everything she believed about strength and weakness, about what had value and what should be discarded. She was about to meet someone who might prove that she'd been wrong for 300 years. The thought terrified her, but she descended anyway because a good queen faced truth even when it was painful, especially when it was painful. On the colony below, Daniel was in his workshop when Peter ran in, breathing hard. You need to come outside, Peter said. Now. What's wrong? Daniel asked. The queen is here, Peter said. Queen herself, and she's asking for you. Daniel looked at. The child's antennas had gone completely flat against the head, a sign of fear. The queen comes, whispered. Why would the queen come? I don't know, Daniel said. He put down the pressure adjustment tool he'd been using to fine-tune's prosthetic. But I guess we're about to find out. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at. You coming? He asked. I am broken, said. I should not be in the queen's presence. You're not broken, Daniel said. You're fixed, and if she's got a problem with that, she can take it up with me. Daniel walked across the landing platform beside him. Every step felt too loud in the silence. Hundreds of colonists watched from a safe distance. The honor guards tracked his movement with their compound eyes. And Queen stood at the center of it all, massive and jeweled and completely still. Ellen Park tried to intercept him. Daniel, we need to establish proper protocol. You can't just walk up to a queen like she's a neighbor. Watch me, Daniel said quietly. He stopped 10 feet from. The queen was even bigger up close. Her shell reflected the colony's lights in rainbow patterns. Her antennas, heavy with crown jewels, moved slowly as she examined him. Daniel had no idea what you were supposed to say to alien royalty, so he said what he'd say to anyone. Hello, I'm Daniel Hayes. I hear you wanted to talk to me. The honor guards made clicking sounds of shock. Apparently that wasn't proper protocol, but antennas tilted forward, a sign of interest. You are the one who repaired the broken child, she said. Her voice came through a translator on her chest, but it still carried weight and power. I built a prosthetic for yes, Daniel said. The child's not broken anymore. The child is damaged, said. A mechanical limb does not change that fundamental truth. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. With respect, Your Majesty, that's wrong. Can walk, run, climb, and do everything any other child can do. That's not damaged, that's adapted. Antennas moved in a pattern Daniel couldn't read. She looked past him to where stood. The small child immediately pressed close to the ground, all 6 limbs flat in submission. Come here, young one, said. Didn't move. Daniel could hear the child's clicking, fast and frightened. It's okay, Daniel said too. I'm right here. slowly walked forward on all 6 limbs. The prosthetic moved perfectly in sync with the biological ones, watched every step. When reached her, the queen extended one limb and lifted the child's prosthetic, examining it closely. Remarkable craftsmanship, said. This is superior to our own prosthetic technology in several ways. The joint articulation is more sophisticated. The grip strength is adjustable. How did you achieve this? Trial and error mostly, Daniel said. And a lot of help from the colony. I couldn't have done it alone. But you initiated it, said. You made the decision to waste resources on this damaged child. Why? There was that word again, waste. Daniel took a breath, trying to keep his voice steady. It's not a waste to help someone, he said. Is a living being, a child. Children have value just because they exist, not because they're perfect. Value, repeated. Explain what value a damaged child provides to your colony. That's not how it works, Daniel said. Doesn't have to provide anything. The child just has to exist. That's enough. That is illogical, said. Resources are finite. They must be allocated to the strong, to those who can contribute to society's success. Is that why you threw away? Daniel asked. His voice got harder. Because one broken limb made a child worthless. The honor guards moved forward, weapons rising. Talking to a queen this way was apparently a serious offense, but raised an antenna, stopping them. You are angry, she said. Yes, I'm angry, Daniel said. I watched that child's mother walk away. I saw crying, terrified, thinking death was coming, all because of a limb, a fixable problem that your people treated like a death sentence. It is our way, said. It has been our way for thousands of years. The weak are removed so the strong can thrive. And how's that working out for you? Daniel asked. You've got a massive empire, sure. But I bet you've also got a lot of dead kids who could grown up to be amazing. How many geniuses did you throw away? How many artists, engineers, leaders? How many children who could change your whole civilization if you'd just given them a chance? Went very still. Around them, the colonists were silent. Even the honor guards had stopped moving. You presume to lecture me on how to run my empire? His voice was cold. No, Daniel said. I presume to tell you that kids matter. All kids, yours included. And if your empire can't see that, then it's missing something important. Lisa pushed through the crowd and stood next to Daniel. Then Peter joined him. Then Carlos and then more colonists, forming a line between Daniel and the guards. Ellen Park, despite her earlier warnings, stepped forward too. He's right, Lisa said. We're just a small colony. We don't have your resources or your technology. But we know that helping each other makes us stronger, not weaker. Looked at the humans standing together. Her antennas moved through several complex patterns. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. You would risk conflict with my empire to defend this position. We'd risk it to defend, Daniel said, and any other child who needs help. Was silent for a long time. The only sound was the wind across the landing platform and soft, nervous clicking. Finally, the queen spoke. 300 years ago, I had a daughter. Everyone went still. Queens didn't share personal information. This was unprecedented. She was born with a genetic flaw, continued. Her exoskeleton was weak in places. She would never have been as strong as other. By our laws, by our traditions, she had to be removed from the hive. Clicking stopped. The child looked up at the queen with wide eyes. I gave the order myself, said. I watched as they took my only offspring away. I told myself it was necessary, that weakness could not be allowed to spread, that I was protecting the hive by sacrificing one child. Her antennas drooped, a gesture of deep sadness. But I never forgot her. I never stopped wondering what she might have become. Every decision I have made in 300 years has been colored by that loss, and I told myself it was worth it, that the strength of the empire justified the cost. Looked directly at Daniel. Then I received a report about a human who refused to let a child die, who spent his own resources, his own time, his own energy to save one small life, who gained nothing from it except the knowledge that he had helped someone who needed help. She turned her attention to, Stand up, young one, let me see you properly. Stood, all 6 limbs supporting the small body. The prosthetic gleamed silver in the light. You can walk, asked. Yes, your majesty, said quietly. Show me. Walked in a circle around the queen. Then, growing bolder, the child ran, jumped, climbed onto a nearby crate and backed down. The prosthetic performed flawlessly. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" asked. Santana's perked up. "I want to be an engineer like Daniel. I want to help others." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. She looked at Daniel again. "I have been a queen for 200 years. I have conquered worlds, built cities, commanded billions. I thought I understood strength. But watching this child, seeing the joy in movement that should have been impossible, I realize I may have been wrong about many things." She moved closer to Daniel. Despite her size, her movements were careful, controlled. "You saved this child for no logical reason. You gained nothing. You risked diplomatic incident. You ignored your own leader's advice, all for one small life. This is the opposite of everything my civilization values." "Yes," Daniel said simply. "And yet," said, "I find myself envying you. You have something I lost 300 years ago, something I threw away because I thought it was weakness." "What's that?" Daniel asked. "Compassion," said. "The ability to value life simply because it exists, the strength to help those who cannot help themselves." She turned to address the crowd. "I came here to understand human irrationality, to learn why you waste resources on the weak. But I see now that it is not waste. It is investment in something my people have forgotten. The belief that every life has potential. That strength comes not from eliminating the imperfect, but from helping them thrive despite their challenges." She looked back at, 300 years ago, I killed my daughter because she was imperfect. If I had met someone like you then, Daniel Hayes, she might still be alive. She might have become someone remarkable. I will never know because I chose the easy path, the traditional path, the path that seemed logical." His voice resonated across the platform. "I was wrong. My entire civilization has been wrong, and I intend to change that." The honor guards made sounds of shock, stepped forward, his antennas waving in agitation. "Your Majesty, you cannot mean to overturn of tradition based on one human's actions." "I can and I will," said. "I am queen. My word is law, and I declare that no more children will be cast out for imperfection. Our empire will learn what this small human colony already knows, that helping the vulnerable makes us stronger, not weaker." Daniel felt like he couldn't breathe. This was beyond anything he'd imagined. He just wanted to help one child. Now an alien queen was talking about changing her entire civilization. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "that's going to cause problems in your empire. People don't like change." "I am aware," said, "but some things are worth fighting for. You taught me that today." She extended a limb toward Daniel. He realized it was meant as a gesture of respect, maybe even friendship. He reached out and gently touched her limb with his hand. "Thank you," said quietly, "for showing me what I had lost, for proving that compassion is not weakness, for saving a child when no one else would." "I'd do it again," Daniel said. "I know," said, "that is what makes you remarkable." She turned to, "Young one, you are no longer broken in the eyes of the Empire. You are adapted, as this human says. You are proof that our old ways were cruel and wrong. Would you do me the honor of serving as an example to our people, of showing them that the imperfect can thrive?" Santana's trembled. "Yes, Your Majesty, I will do my best." "That is all anyone can ask," said. She addressed the crowd one final time. "This colony will have the protection and friendship of the 7th Hive clan. Any who threaten you will answer to me personally. You have taught my people a valuable lesson today. That is a debt I can never fully repay." As walked back to her ship, Daniel felt Lisa's hand on his shoulder. "You just changed an empire," she said. "I just helped a kid," Daniel said. But even as he said it, he knew it was bigger than that. Sometimes helping one person rippled outward in ways you couldn't predict. Sometimes one act of kindness could change everything. As the eternal perfection lifted off, heading back to the home worlds, Daniel looked down at. The child was watching the ships disappear into the sky. "What happens now?" asked. "Now," Daniel said, "you get to decide who you want to be, not what your hive says you should be, what you want." Santennas lifted high, standing proud. "I want to help others like you helped me." Daniel smiled. "Then I guess we'd better get you properly trained." 3 months after Queen's visit, Daniel's workshop looked completely different. The small, cluttered space had expanded into 3 connected buildings. Workbenches lined the walls, and students, both human and worked at each one. The air hummed with the sound of tools and quiet conversation. Daniel moved between the workstations, checking on projects and offering advice. At one bench was teaching a young human girl how to calibrate a neural interface. The prosthetic limb the girl was building was for a merchant who'd lost 2 limbs in a cargo accident. The signal patterns are tricky, explained, the translator converting the clicks to words. You need to map each nerve cluster individually. Watch, I'll show you. Daniel smiled, had become his best student, absorbing knowledge faster than anyone he'd ever taught. The child understood both and human anatomy now, bridging the gap between species with natural talent and hard work. Lisa entered the workshop carrying a data pad. Her face was serious. More news from the worlds, she said. You need to see this. Daniel took the pad and read the report. His eyes widened. Queen had issued the Edict of Compassion 6 weeks ago. It declared that no child would be cast out for physical or genetic imperfection. Medical facilities were being built on every hive world to provide care and prosthetics. The entire empire was being restructured around a new philosophy. Not everyone was happy about it. There have been protests on 17 worlds, Lisa said. Some of the traditional hive clans are refusing to follow the edict. Their saying has been corrupted by human weakness. Is she okay? Daniel asked. She's holding firm, Lisa said. But there are reports of violence. Some clans are threatening to break away from the empire. Daniel set down the data pad and looked out the window. In the distance, he could see a medical ship landing at the colony's platform. It had come to pick up 6 new prosthetics his students had built. More ships would come tomorrow and the day after that. What had started as one child had become a movement, but movements came with consequences. Do you regret it? Lisa asked quietly, starting all this. Daniel thought about, now confident and skilled, teaching others with patience and enthusiasm. He thought about the dozens of children his workshop had helped in the past months, children who would have died under the old system. No, he said, change is hard, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. That evening, Daniel received a direct communication request. The sender was Queen herself. He accepted it, and her massive form appeared on the holographic display. Daniel Hayes said, I hope I am not interrupting your work. Not at all, Your Majesty, Daniel said. I heard about the protests. Are you all right? Santenna's dipped slightly. I have faced resistance before. This is merely more personal than usual. Some of my own clan leaders believe I have betrayed our traditions. Have you? Daniel asked. Yes, said without hesitation. I have betrayed traditions that were cruel and wasteful, traditions that cost us countless talented individuals who could have contributed to our society. I regret only that I did not betray them sooner. She moved closer to the camera pickup on her end. I wanted to tell you that 17 hive clans have now fully implemented the edict. Medical centers are operational. We have saved 43 children in the past month alone, children who would have died under the old system. That's wonderful, Daniel said. It is also creating chaos, said. The families of these children do not know how to care for them. We have no cultural framework for helping the imperfect. We must build it from nothing. That's why you're sending ships here, Daniel said. You need people who know how to do this. I need teachers, confirmed. Would you consider coming to our throne world? I can offer you resources beyond anything your colony can provide. You could train thousands of engineers, save thousands of lives. Daniel looked around his workshop, at his students working together, learning from each other, at the community that had formed around this place, at who had just successfully completed the calibration and was clicking with joy. I appreciate the offer, Your Majesty, Daniel said. But I think I'm needed here. This is where it started. This is where humans and learn to work together. I want to keep that going. Santenna's rose in what might have been approval. I understand. Then I have a different request. I am sending my chief medical officer to study with you. Her name is. Daniel froze, smother. Yes, said. She has requested permission to see her child again. Under the old laws, that would be forbidden. But I am creating new laws now, laws that allow parents to stay with their children regardless of imperfection. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. Did not want to leave. She was following the only law she knew. Now she has a chance to be a mother again, if you will allow it. Of course I will, Daniel said. When will she arrive? 3 days, said. And Daniel, there is something else. I am establishing a new position in the Empire, an advisor on compassionate policy. Someone who understands how to balance strength with kindness. I would like you to consider taking that role. I'm not a politician, Daniel said. No, said. You are something better. You are someone who sees a problem and fixes it without worrying about politics or protocol. That is exactly what I need. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Can I think about it? Of course, said. But while you think, know this, you changed my empire with one act of kindness. Imagine what you could do with official authority behind you. The transmission ended. Daniel sat in the quiet workshop processing what had just happened. An alien queen wanted him to help reshape her civilization. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of thing he couldn't say no to. 3 days later arrived. She was smaller than most, with markings on her shell that indicated her merchant caste. She walked hesitantly into the workshop, her antennas moving nervously. Was working at a bench and didn't see her at first. Then the child's antennas picked up a familiar scent, turned, and for a moment neither of them moved. Mother's translator said quietly. My child responded. They met in the middle of the workshop. Limbs wrapped around, pulling the child close. Both of them made sounds that the translator couldn't process, sounds of grief and joy mixed together. Daniel turned away, giving them privacy. Lisa stood next to him, wiping her eyes. You did that, she said. You gave them a second chance. I just built a prosthetic, Daniel said. You did more than that, Lisa said. You proved that families don't have to be broken forever, that mistakes can be fixed, that there's always hope. Stayed at the colony. She learned everything she could about prosthetics and compassionate care. She asked Daniel questions constantly, absorbing information like she was starving for it. And every evening she spent time with, rebuilding a relationship that should never have been broken. 6 months after that first meeting with, Daniel finally accepted her offer. Not to move to the throne world, but to serve as a remote advisor. He would stay at New Horizon, training students and building prosthetics. But he would also consult with the government on policy changes. His first official act was to establish a galaxy-wide prosthetics training program. Any species could send students to learn. The focus would be on compassionate care and seeing patients as people, not problems to solve. The program's first class had 60 students. 30 were learning to help their own people. 20 were human, expanding their skills to work with alien biology. 10 were from other species who'd heard about the program and wanted to participate. Was one of the teaching assistants, despite being barely a year into recovery. The child, no longer broken or afraid, moved between students with confidence and patience. One afternoon, a new ship landed at the colony. It was small and unmarked. A single emerged, moving slowly and carefully. Daniel noticed that 2 of its limbs were different colors from the others, prosthetics. They approached the workshop and stood at the entrance for a long moment before entering. Are you Daniel Hayes? The translator asked. I am, Daniel said. How can I help you? The antennas moved in a complex pattern of shame and hope. My name is, I was cast out from my hive 10 years ago when I lost these limbs in an accident. I have survived by hiding my imperfection and pretending to be from a different clan. But now I hear that the laws have changed, that the broken are no longer cast out. They moved closer. I want to go home. I want to see my family again, but my prosthetics are old and obvious. I need better ones if I am to return with dignity. Can you help me? Daniel looked at this who had spent a decade in exile, alone and afraid. He thought about all the others like them scattered across the galaxy. People who'd been thrown away and told they had no value. Yes, Daniel said, we can help you. And when you go home, you'll go with your head high because you survived, you endured, and that takes more strength than being perfect ever could. Antennas trembled. Thank you, I have waited so long to hear words like that. Daniel called over 2 of his students. We're going to build them the best prosthetics we can, make them proud to show them off. As the students led to a workbench, Daniel felt Lisa's presence beside him. Another one saved, she said. Another one found, Daniel corrected. They saved themselves by surviving. We're just helping them come home. News have spread through the underground network of exiled. More came to the colony. Dozens, then hundreds. Each one had a story of survival, of hiding, of living in shame for imperfections they couldn't control. Daniel's workshop expanded again, then again. It became a place of healing, not just of bodies, but of spirits, who'd spent years alone found community. They found acceptance. They found hope. And slowly the empire changed. Not everywhere and not all at once. But world by world, clan by clan, the old cruel traditions gave way to something better. Medical centers replaced execution chambers. Families learned to keep their children instead of discarding them. The word broken began to fade from common usage, replaced by different or adapted. There was resistance. Some clans fought the changes bitterly, but stood firm, and with each child saved, with each family reunited, the resistance grew weaker. 2 years after building's prosthetic, Daniel stood on a stage at a galactic medical conference. Thousands of beings from dozens of species filled the auditorium. He'd been asked to speak about the transformation and what it meant for cross-species cooperation. He felt completely out of place. He was just a colony engineer, not a diplomat or a philosopher. But he'd learned that sometimes regular people had to speak up because no one else would. 2 years ago, I met a scared child who'd been told they were worthless, Daniel said into the microphone. I didn't do anything special. I just refused to accept that any child could be worthless. I built a prosthetic limb because it seemed like the right thing to do. He paused, looking out at the crowd. I didn't know it would change an empire. I didn't know it would start a movement. I just knew that a kid needed help and I could provide it. That's the lesson I want to share with all of you. You don't need to change the galaxy. You just need to help the person in front of you. The galaxy will change on its own. The audience was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on their feet, applauding. Daniel stepped off the stage feeling embarrassed and overwhelmed. Met him at the stairs, now nearly as tall as a human teenager and serving as Daniel's official assistant. That was a good speech, said. It was short, Daniel said. I'm not good at speeches. You are good at helping people, said. That is more important. They walked out of the auditorium together. Outside, the city of the conference world stretched to the horizon. Ships from 100 species filled the sky. It was a galaxy learning to work together, slowly and imperfectly, but genuinely trying. Daniel thought about his brother, about the promise he'd made to himself after the mining accident to never again watch someone die when he could help them. He'd kept that promise, and in keeping it, he'd done something he never expected. He'd shown a galaxy that compassion wasn't weakness, that helping the vulnerable made civilizations stronger, not weaker, that every life had value regardless of perfection or imperfection. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from New Horizon Colony. Another ship had arrived with another who needed help. Another person who'd been told they were broken and wanted to be whole again. Daniel smiled and typed a quick response. On my way, keep them comfortable, we'll fix this together. Because that's what he did. That's what his workshop did. That's what a galaxy was slowly learning to do. They helped each other, one person at a time, one prosthetic at a time, one act of kindness at a time. And sometimes, if you helped enough people, you changed the whole galaxy without even meaning to. Daniel looked up at the stars and thought about all the people out there who needed help, all the children who'd been told they were worthless, all the families torn apart by cruel traditions. There was still so much work to do. But for the first time in years, Daniel felt something he'd thought he'd lost when his brother died. He felt hope, real, genuine hope that things could get better, that people could change, that the galaxy could become a kinder place. All because he'd refused to let one child suffer. All because he'd built a limb for an alien child, and in doing so had helped build a better future for everyone. Santennas lifted slightly. The child climbed down from the work table and followed Daniel on all 6 limbs. The prosthetic moved smoothly, keeping perfect pace with the biological ones. Outside, the entire colony had gathered at the landing platform. The Eternal Perfection was descending, a massive ship that made the whole platform shake. Honor guards emerged first, forming a perimeter with weapons ready but not raised. Then came Queen. She was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall with a shell that gleamed with precious metals and jewels. Her antennas were crowned with what looked like diamonds. She moved with absolute authority, every step radiating power. Daniel swallowed hard. This was so far beyond anything he'd expected. He was just a colony engineer. He fixed water pumps and built prosthetics. He didn't meet with alien queens, but was trembling next to him, and that made Daniel's decision simple. He stepped forward to meet the most powerful being in the Empire, because someone had to stand up for the kid. "We did good," Daniel corrected. "Couldn't have done it without everyone's help." "Still," Lisa said, "this started with you. You're the one who decided a child was worth saving, no matter what species." Daniel watched show off the prosthetic to the gathered colonists. The child who'd been crying and broken just days ago was now playing, laughing, living. "Every child is worth saving," Daniel said quietly. He didn't know it yet, but 3 sectors away, a trading ship was sending reports back to the Hive worlds. Reports about a human who valued the broken. Reports that would travel up the chain of command, reaching queens and councils. Reports that would change everything. His clicking slowed. The child's antennas drooped with exhaustion. After a while, his eyes began to close. Daniel dimmed the lights and covered the child with a thermal blanket, fell asleep on the work table, one limb clutching the edge of the blanket. Daniel sat down at his computer. He had maybe 48 hours to build something that had never been built before. A prosthetic for an alien species. Something that would give this child a chance at a real life. He took a drink of cold coffee and started to work. Outside, the colony's lights came on one by one, small points of brightness against the dark.